Reeves Immigration Law Group now brings you Immigration Law on Your Side.
Alright, Happy New Year! Bagong taon mga kababayan. Nandito na naman ang Immigration Law on Your Side sa PHLV Radio. And ngayon, ang pag-uusapan natin ay marriage fraud. Right away, at the beginning of the year, mainit na mainit kaagad ang ating pag-uusapan. The dangers, consequences, and possible relief of marriage fraud. Kung kayo po'y mag-aasawa para sa green card lamang, makinig at para malaman ang lahat na kailangan nyong malaman. In order for couples to immigrate through a marriage-based petition, the couple must be ready to undergo the scrutiny of the USCIS or the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. A couple must be ready to prove to this USCIS that their marriage was not entered into solely for immigration purposes, because getting married simply for green card almost never works. Rather, it may actually prevent a person from ever being granted a permanent resident status or being given a green card. So tonight mga kababayan, at the start of the year, kasama natin si Attorney Flomy J, partner at Reeves Immigration Law Group, to discuss what marriage fraud is, its consequences, and possible relief. Magandang gabi po sa iyo, Attorney Diza.
Magandang gabi Kuya Johan at Happy New Year din lahat sa inyo at isang maulan, bumabagyo at bumabahang pagbati mula sa Bay Area dito sa California at palaging maulan ngayon. Ngayon ay Miyerkules at January, kung nakikinig po kayo, ay January 11 na po tayo ngayon, bagong taon. At sabi mo nga, mainit ang ating pag-usapan ngayon dahil basically marami sa mga kababayan natin ang nagtatanong sa atin kung paano nila malulusutan at posible pa bang makakuha ng green card, di ba, if they're going to if they were charged of marriage fraud ng USCIS.
So attorney, right at the top, tatanungin natin kayo, ano po ba ang marriage fraud?
Yes, Kuya Johan, ang marriage fraud ay posibleng it's a crime, no? At pwede ring violation ng immigration. Now, the crime of marriage fraud is the entry of marriage for the purpose of evading immigration laws. Ibig sabihin, you marry someone for green card. Pero hindi rin ibig sabihin mga kababayan na hindi pwedeng mag-apply ng green card, di ba? Dahil you entered marriage for other purposes, hindi lang green card, pero also like people marry for companionship, di ba? For friendship, for love, for loyalty, right? Pero hindi ibig sabihin may marriage fraud doon. Ang definition ng batas para po kayo ma-persecute ay you enter marriage for the sole benefit of green card. So, marami sa mga kababayan natin na, di ba, na nagpapakasal dahil sa iba't ibang dahilan. Nabanggit na natin kanina, for love, companionship, friendship. Yung ibang lahi naman dahil arranged marriage, di ba, minsan nagiging tradition, di ba, na i-match nila ang kanilang mga anak sa anak ng kanilang kaibigan, di ba? The same, di ba? O yung iba naman may mga ibang paraan para maging asawa isang tao, at ito hindi ito considered as marriage fraud. And again, very broad ang definition ng marriage fraud to the point na pwede po ninyong malusutan kung may ibang dahilan because of you entering marriage.
Attorney, can someone be arrested or prosecuted and jailed for committing marriage fraud as a crime?
Yes, pinapaalalahan natin sa kababayan natin that even if marriage is the fastest and the easiest way to get your green card in the US, lalong-lalo na yung mga nag-overstay na, right? Marriage fraud is a federal crime. And a person convicted of marriage fraud can be imprisoned for up to 5 years and fine of 250,000. Now, bibihirang pinapresecute yan, pero may mga instances din, lalo ng panahon ng President Trump, that the prosecutors are aggressively investigating and charging anyone suspected of committing marriage fraud. Among other crimes that until now have been, bibihira namang ini-enforce sa mga undocumented. Ang most consequences ito, Kuya Johan, ay sa immigration.
Okay. So so aside from criminal prosecution, possible criminal prosecution, ano pa po ba ang ibang mga consequences? Nabanggit nyo, of course, sa immigration, malaki ang tama nito sa inyo. Ano po ba, attorney, ang iba pang mga consequences?
Yes, kahit sabihin niyo hindi naman ako pinaprosecute o wala namang final na criminal case against me, di ba? Wala akong fine, wala akong imprisonment. But the reality is, ang USCIS, yung US Immigration, US Citizenship and Immigration Services can bar a person for any future immigration relief pag sinabihan na kayo that you entered or attempted to enter into a fraudulent marriage. Yung batas nito, yung Immigration and Nationality Act, na under 204C, yung 204C ba na sinasabi natin sa mga client, pag dinetermine ng immigration that you entered into a fraudulent marriage, ang immigration will deny any future petition filed on behalf of that petition, regardless of the petitioner. Right? So, ito yung permanent bar. Mas masaklap ito dahil permanent bar kayo and there's no waiver. Walang waiver yan. So, that means po, mga kababayan, if USCIS finds you that there was a fraudulent marriage, any future petition, kahit petition manggaling sa magulang ninyo, sa anak ninyo, kahit sa employer, i-deny dahil of the marriage fraud. Right? So, very, very strict po ang consequence po ng findings ng marriage fraud. Now, in addition to this one, Kuya Johan, ang people found committing marriage fraud, the Immigration Custom Enforcement can initiate proceedings in immigration court to remove yung person committed the fraudulent marriage. So, kahit nakakuha na kayo ng green card nyo, pwede pa rin kayong i-charge ng marriage fraud.
Ayun. So, kailangan talagang malaman mga kaibigan ang consequences dahil whether you're adjusting, kung nandito ka na sa America, attorney, and you're just adjusting, for example, to you wanted to stay permanently here already, ikaw ba ay, say for example, nakamit ka ng isang US citizen. Okay, and then, sige, magpakasal tayo para sa green card. Can you still be charged with marriage fraud na nandito ka na, mag-adjust ka lang?
Yes, Kuya Johan, kahit nasaan po kayo, no, like whether you're in the Philippines or dito, pwede po kayo i-charge ng marriage fraud. Meaning, yung consequence niya na magiging lifetime ban kayo ng any future petition.
Wow.
So for example, nandito kayo on a tourist visa, right? Or nag-expire na yung tourist visa ninyo, you find someone else and you get married, right? And then you filed the adjustment of status, and during the interview, yung asawa po ninyo umamin, di ba? Na, well, he's a very good high school friend, right? Kilala ko sila, nakiusap sa akin that we live together, pero walang sexual relationship or walang marital relationship, nagtutulungan lang kami, di ba? I marry her and she's going to pay ng aking mortgage, di ba, or aking bill. So it's kind of like, arranged relationship. So if that situation, yan, Kuya Johan, is usually, typically, yan yung mga nagkakaroon ng findings ng immigration fraud, di ba? So you're adjusting status in the United States. But take note, mga kababayan, hindi lang din po yung mga nandito, yung mga nasa abroad din na pinapetisyon ng asawa, di ba? So for example, itong Amerikano o itong US citizen went home and marry a Filipina, and then start na siyang mag-file ng petition at na-approve yan ng USCIS, and then dumating sa interview. Pagdating ng interview, nagkaroon ng parang red flag, di ba, sa immigration officer. So they put the applicant in what do you call this, like an extensive interview, right? So yun, at the same umamin siya na nakiusap lang din kami, or binayaran ko siya, or talagang walang relationship kasi may ibang kinakasama yung US citizen sa Amerika, or siya mismo doon may sarili din siyang kinakasama. So at that point, kung umamin yung tao sa Pilipinas na nag-a-apply ng visa, pwede rin siyang magkaroon ng lifetime ban when it comes to the consequence ng committing marriage fraud. Now, hindi lang yun, Kuya Johan, kahit na yung mga nabigyan ng green card, di ba? Yung conditional. So conditional, nabigyan ka ng 2 years green card, and then nag-file ka ng removal of condition, right? And then they found out na wala ka kang dokumento, or nagkaroon ng interview, tapos kung anong mga pinagsasabi mo during the interview, then nahuli po kayo that you committed marriage fraud. That's another situation. So hindi lang yung nag-a-adjust, hindi lang yung kumukuha ng green card, ng immigrant visa sa Pilipinas, hindi lang yung nagpa-file ng removal, yung pangatlo, and then yung pang-apat, yung mga nag-file ng citizenship. So sabihin mo, ano na ako, 10 years green card na ako, or 20 years na, di ba? Or something, nag-apply ka ng green card, nang tinanong kung ano ang basis ng inyong pagkuha ng green card and you said, well, I married someone else. And then tinanong kung sino nag-petition sa inyo or ano pangalan ng asawa mo, you can't remember or hindi mo alam, and then they found out, right? They sent an investigator sa US citizen and siya mismo hindi rin niya maalala or umamin na hindi tunay yung kasal. At that point, pwede pa rin kayong i-charge ng marriage fraud, and of course, as we mentioned, the consequence would either be lifetime bar kayo for any subsequent petition, or they can place you in removal proceedings. So ito yung mga tao na pwedeng charge ng immigration fraud, marriage fraud.
Attorney, ano pa bang ibang mga basis ng USCIS para mahuli ka na ito pala ay hindi totoong marriage? Paano nila ginagawa? How do they do that? I mean, as you said, they send an investigator, right? On top of my mind, they must be looking at your Facebook as well, your social media posts as well, right?
Yes, one of the basis for determining legitimacy ng marriage, Kuya Johan, is interview, right? So 99% of the time, once you file an adjustment of status, or kahit sa Pilipinas yung immigrant visa based on marriage, may interview yan, right? So they call, if you're in the United States, they call the couple for the interview. So pagdating sa interview diyan, Kuya Johan, right, tinatanong yung relationship, right? And there are situations, unang-una, nahuhuli ang mag-asawa dahil sa kanilang mga sagot, di ba? Yung kanilang what we call inconsistent statements during the interview. So posible yan, pwede mangyari sa first interview or sa second interview din, di ba? Nagkakaroon ng tinatawag nating enhanced or Stokes interview where couples are separated, right, and ask questions, the same questions. So pinaghihiwalay yan, iminamatch yung mga sagot, di ba? So anong kinain mo ngayong umaga, right? Anong saan ka natulog kagabi, or anong oras ka dumating kagabi, stuff like that. So it's kind of personal questions na dapat alam mo yun because you are married, you are living together. So kung nagkakaroon ka ng inconsistent statements, that's the time and that's the situation where immigration determines that this is not a viable marriage. So yan ang unang-una. Pangalawa would be site visit. Right? So for example, during the interview, nasagot nyo lahat mga tanong, but may mga red flag pa rin dahil either hindi may mga sitwasyon hindi kayo nagtutugma ng sagot, or aloof kayo sa isa't isa, di ba? Or you don't have a lot of documents when you went to the interview. So nagpadala sila ngayon ng tinatawag natin na ICE, yung Immigration Custom Enforcement, to go to your home, to your house, early in the morning, kakatok sila dyan at titingnan nila kung magkasama kayo, di ba? Or ibang kasama mo, or there are situations ang ICE officers would like to see kung anong laman ng bahay, di ba? Kung ilan ang toothbrush, kung ilan ang damit ba ng asawa mo dito, right? Or magtatanong din sila sa mga roommates po ninyo kung kilala yung asawa po ninyo, lalo na kung sasabihin nyo caregiver yung asawa at hindi siya natutulog sa gabi doon dahil live-in caregiver, no? Pero at least sinabi nyo na you go home every Saturday, kilala kayo ng roommates, okay yon. So yung pangalawang sitwasyon, Kuya Johan, where nagkakaroon ng site visit. Marami sa ating mga kababayan nabibigla na may mga dumarating, and alam naman tayong mga Pilipino sa pagiging hospitable natin, di ba, usually we allow them in and say, okay, come here, welcome to my home, right? Kung wala namang dapat itago, walang problema, right? Ang problema kung wala doon yung asawa nyo at iba ang kinakasama ninyo, o walang any visible gamit ng inyong asawa sa bahay, nagkakaroon ng suspicion. And of course, ang immigration officer at that point, interviewin po kayo, at minsan napapaamin mga client. Yun ang problema sa site visit, Kuya Johan, because unlike the first one where they conduct interview, pwede kang magdala ng abogado doon, di ba? To the point na your lawyer can ask you more time to explain the discrepancy, or probably object kung ano yung line of questioning, which is kind of too personal, right? But sa site visit, early in the morning, like 5 o'clock, or before 6 o'clock, nandun na sila, na wala pang tao sa opisina ng mga abogado ninyo na hindi nyo matawagan, di ba? Minsan doon nagkakandak ng interview. So that's the situation then. Second situation where people get caught, and there is a conclusion and determination of a marriage fraud. Yung pangalawa, yung binanggit mo kanina, Kuya Johan, yung online resources, that, yung social media, very, very important ang social media ninyo. If you get married, right, dapat ang kasama ninyo yung asawa o yung family, pamilya ninyo, hindi yung ibang tao. Kasi madali yan madaling search kahit sabihin mong you're not using the full name, right? If you have the email information, kasi you provide that sa application form, madaling search din yan sa inyong mga social media. And of course, yung pinaka-obvious dito is yung admission, either parties. Kayo pong ang mga aplikante o yung US citizen spouse po ninyo na umamin mismo that yes, this is marriage for convenience. Lalong-lalo na, as we mentioned, ang mga Pilipino, madaling takutin yan at madali ring because of our religion na magiging Catholic, minsan, we confess and admit the truth. Masaklap ang truth is minsan if it's really a marriage fraud, there is an adverse consequence, of committing that marriage fraud.
Attorney, pagka halimbawa na-determine talaga ng USCIS na this was a marriage for convenience and you get, they determine na talagang marriage fraud ito, how do you get out of this? Is there still a way na makaalis ka dito sa black hole na ito?
Yes, dahil sabi nga natin, may there's threat of criminal prosecution, right? At saka lifetime ban ka. So what we tell our clients, Kuya Johan, is if there's a determination of marriage fraud, right? You have to overcome yung determination na yon. So what we do, what we recommend, right? Kung kayo pa rin mag-asawa, let's say you get married to this US citizen, right? And you went to the interview and there's a lot of inconsistent statements, and some immigration officers would always tell you like, I just need 3 major inconsistent statements from you, then I can deny your case. So ganun sila, Kuya Johan, make 3 major inconsistent statements. So kahit most of your answers are consistent, right, they can still deny you based on that. So what I tell clients, lalo na yung mga unrepresented and unprepared going to the interview, is refile. Pwede mo, kasi yung appeal, minsan it's hard for you to appeal the case, right? Appeal the decision kung totoo ang kanilang findings, right? Natakot ka nga, tama, na-threaten ka nga, pero yung pag-amin mo kasi o yung pagsabi mo, tama yung sinabi mo, how can you appeal a case kung tama ang finding of facts ng immigration? Kasi ikaw mismo umamin. So how would you overcome that? Now, if you still live with your husband, or rather your spouse, who filed a petition for you where USCIS determines that that is the marriage fraud, we recommend na i-refile, di ba? You have a second chance. Ang maganda dito, wala yung tinatawag nating double jeopardy where immigration already finds you guilty of marriage fraud and that's the end of it, right? Instead of appealing it, you can always refile and say na I'm still with my spouse who filed a previous petition, kaya lang kasi medyo at that point graveyard siya, di ba? Shift siya at that point where hindi siya nakatulog, bumasok pa siya, dumiretso sa immigration, hindi man lang nakapagkape o nakakain ng breakfast, kaya hindi niya gaano naintindihan yung mga tanong, yung mga ganun ba? Right? So you can overcome, and there's no such thing as bar if the petitioner is the same spouse. So let's say na-deny ka na from sa asawa mo, and of course, as I said, instead of appealing, i-refile mo na lang. You have to bite the bullet na mag-refile ka ulit o mag-abogado ka just to get out from that black hole na binasabi natin and to overcome. Na mag-asawa talaga kami. Nagkataon lang during that interview, right? Tawag nito, groggy siya o hindi niya naintindihan ang tanong, or dahil hindi rin siya magaling masyadong magsalita ng English o nakakaintindi ng English. This was the understanding. So you have to overcome that. But once you refile, kailangan mo namang i-prove ngayon na this is really a legitimate marriage. Diba? Ito yung mga joint documents namin, right? Meron na kaming joint bank accounts, meron na kaming income tax, meron na kaming trips to Hawaii, or we went to Europe together, and we have a joint health insurance. So you have to show that the marriage is bona fide, because at this point in time, the second filing, it's your burden, to overcome yung prior findings nila. Diba? Kasi mahirap, Kuya Johan, kasi meron ng findings, lalong-lalo na yung sitwasyon na umamin ang isa sa inyo na, oh yeah, binayaran niya ako, or hindi kami nagkaroon ng sexual relationship, right? Stuff like that is really, really hard to overcome, right? So, yun yung una mong gagawin is to refile and to show USCIS that this is a legitimate marriage. Now, kung sakali naman na wala na talaga kayo sa marriage, no? Let's say hindi na talaga magkasundo at hindi na materialize yung marriage at kayo nag-divorce and you find someone else where you marry another US citizen. As we mentioned kanina, ban ka doon, your lifetime ban. So kahit magkaroon ka pa ng anak, doon sa subsequent marriage mo, hindi kanya matutulungan. Right? But you also have to consult an immigration attorney to see kung ano kasama yung marriage fraud findings ng USCIS. Kasi kung sinasabi lang nila na ito yung sinabi mo, lalong-lalo yung mga inconsistent statements because there might be a reasonable explanation bakit nagkaroon kayo ng discrepancy at that point. So kung let's say sabihin pa natin 3 na major inconsistent statements, right? But there's a reason to explain, pwede ka pa rin mag-file dun sa subsequent marriage mo and you need to overcome and explain bakit ka na-deny the first time. And plus, kahit hindi mo explain yan, ang immigration naman, Kuya Johan, would request you evidence, They might issue a notice of intent to deny or request for evidence to explain what happened to the first marriage. And doon mo i-overcome. Yun mo explain na, as we mentioned, ito yung inconsistent statements and this is the explanation. Better, siguro, you reach out to your prior spouse, di ba, na interview at that point para gumawa rin ng statement para ma-explain kung bakit ganun ang sinabi niya at ganito ang sinasabi mo. So it's a lot better, and especially if makakuha kayo ng statement from that spouse that, the relationship really was legitimate, right? And the relationship, there was love, there was, companionship, there was really a valid marriage. It just didn't work out the way the couple wanted it to be. So yun yung other option po ninyo is to overcome. You can still marry and file and overcome. Right? So yun yung pangalawang options ninyo. Titignan din ninyo mga kababayan kung kailan ba yung marriage fraud na yan kasi ang batas na nagkaroon into office sinasabi natin is I think pre-IRA yun in the 1990s. So if the marriage was committed before then, before the effective date ng batas ng 204C, you can probably also make an argument, right, that you're not covered, and then ang ipa-file mo na lang is a possible waiver. Now,
what about if natuloy, you get charged with the marriage fraud? If you're already in immigration court, is there any hope for the couple, for the beneficiary?
Yes, ang sa court kasi isa sa mga enforcement priorities ng USCIS is fraud. Like, you committed fraud, you committed crime, especially marriage fraud. So, typically, mga kababayan, kapag the USCIS determines na may marriage fraud yung petition or yung relationship, i-deny ka na, ilalagay ka ba sa immigration judge. So, ano yung relief mo ngayon? Kasi dinideport ka na. So, the first thing that you're going to do is, kung hindi pa kayo green card holder, is to file for a cancellation of removal, right? Cancellation of removal naman, Kuya Yon, nag-a-apply lang yan kung kayo ay nandito na sa Amerika ng more than 10 years, right? So, and then you have another qualifying relative, either spouse or children who would suffer extreme, exceptional, unusual hardship. So, yun ang maganda niyan. Kaya lang, kung wala ka pang 10 taon, then you're stuck, right? So, wala ka ng other option unless, right, meron kang naging victim ka ng crimes, yung U visa, right, o naging victim ka ng trafficking, yung T visa. So, pwede mong i-apply yun or mag-apply ka ng asylum kung meron kayong fear of going back home. Let's say, you were for example, gay, right? You're gay and because you are gay, you were sexually abused by whoever back home, right? And then you were here in the US and you marry a heterosexual, the opposite sex. Kaya because you are homosexual, hindi nag-go through yung relationship and, umamin ka na this is not a legitimate marriage, and then they place you in removal proceedings. And as we mentioned, any future petition, ban po kayo kahit mag-asawa ka ng same sex ngayon, hindi ka matutulungan. But of course, if you fear of going back home because you are a member of a social group, the LGBT community, and you fear for your life, for your liberty, and you're being threatened of your freedom when you go back home, then you can probably apply for asylum. So yung possible relief, Kuya Johan, either as cancellation of removal, visa victim of crime po kayo, or trafficking, or if you have a basis for asylum, you can possibly do that. Now, if you are a green card holder already, right? So nabigyan na kayo ng tawag nito, ng 2 years conditional, and then immigration said, oh, kamali ng pagbigay namin sa yung green card because the basis of your green card is through marriage, and we find out that the marriage is for convenience, so nilagay sa immigration proceedings. The good thing is there's also possible relief, yung 237A1H waiver, right, which our law firm Reeves Immigration Law Group had filed a lawsuit, right? We appealed the case, we filed a lawsuit against, and we argue that if you are a U.S. citizen, or you obtain your conditional green card and you were charged of marriage fraud, you can apply for this very liberal waiver, yung 237A1H waiver, right? As long as you have a qualifying relative, right? You have a spouse or minor children or even parents, Kuya Johan, right? That would, you don't even have to show hardship. You just have to show a discretion where the judge would grant or approve your case. So those are your possible options, right? If there was a determination of marriage fraud in your case.
How about attorney, kung halimbawa, okay sige, okay, huli na, no? Pero at that point in time, meron ka ng ibang way, say for example, nakakuha ka ng employer, nakakuha ng bagong ibang magpe-petition sa iyo. Can that work, attorney?
Generally, no, because of the lifetime ban of any future petition, right? Petition includes from your children, from another spouse, from your parents, from employer. The only thing that you can do is if you can overcome yung first, pwede pa rin siguro ituloy, as we mentioned, kaya you need really have to have someone, an immigration attorney, to assess kung ano yung denial and finding of marital fraud, because kung may paraan para i-overcome yan, I would still recommend to file a petition and then argue na lang siguro. Kasi bago ka naman i-approve, Kuya Johan, bibigyan ka ng opportunity to respond eh. Sasabihin nila sa'yo, meron kang denial dito ng petition from your prior spouse, and the USCIS determines that you committed marriage fraud. We're giving you time to respond why this present petition from your employer, di ba? Or from your child, or from your son, right? Why this case should be denied because of your prior marriage fraud. And again, at that point, you have to look for an immigration attorney to assess kung pwedeng explain yon of that marriage fraud determination.
All right. Mga kabigan, for those who joined us late today, this is Immigration Law on Your Side. Ang pinag-uusapan po natin ngayong gabi ay ang dangers, consequences, and possible relief of marriage fraud. Alam mo, palagi natin pinag-uusapan ito sa ating pagka may mga party-party, kahit sa Pilipinas, kahit dito, napapag-usapan yan. Sige, maghanap ka na lang ng Amerikano, US citizen. Attorney, nandito tayo sa portion ng ating program this year na meron tayong mga binabasa na mga comments or questions from our listeners and viewers. Some of them are silly questions, some of them are obvious questions, pero babasahin na rin natin para sa inyo, mga kababayan. Attorney, nung nakita nila na ito yung topic nila, ilan sa kanila ang nagtanong, kaya ito ang napili natin itanong sa inyo. Attorney, ang unang tanong nila, pagka sinabi bang marriage to a US citizen para maging US citizen ka rin, it doesn't matter kung siya ay dating Pilipino, ngayon ay US citizen na siya. Pwede yun, attorney, di ba?
Pwede yan, yes.
Ayun.
Yes.
Follow-up question dyan sa kanila is, ito ang tanong nila. Paano kung itong aking natitipuhan ay dual citizen? US and Filipino. Does that affect the immigration process for the beneficiary?
Not at all. Considered US citizen pa rin siya for purposes of immigration petition. And of course, kapag US citizen ang isang tao, mas mabilis actually ang process, di ba? So whether dual citizen or hindi, naging issue lang yan, Kuya Johan, kung ang pinipetition po ninyo is nasa Pilipinas, di ba? At nandun sa Pilipinas din yung dual.
Oh.
Right? Kung nasa Pilipinas yung dual citizen, at nasa Pilipinas din yung pinipetition, at the time of the interview, tatanungin ano ang domicile or saan residence yung petitioner. Di ba? Kasi mag-affidavit support ka and then you have to state kung saan yung residence ng petitioner. So kung makita nila na nasa Pilipinas yung dual citizen, Kuya Johan, there's an issue kasi as we keep on repeating dito sa ating programa, ang immigration is for family unification. So it doesn't make sense na yung dual citizen na yan, pinipetition niya ang kanyang asawang pumunta sa Amerika, siya naman ang kanyang buhay, ang kanyang business nasa Pilipinas. Right? But just because you're a dual citizen, which most of our clients are right now, na nandito sa Amerika, walang issue yon.
Ayos. Okay, mga kababayan, kung meron po kayong mga tanong, katulad ng ganyan, mga sizzling questions, i-comment na lamang po ngayon sa ating post ngayon sa Immigration Law on Your Side on any platform, whether you're on YouTube right now, you're on Facebook, you're watching us on the PHLV Radio, Amazon Fire TV channel, ipaabot po sa amin ang inyong mga questions at ipaparating po natin kay Attorney Diza. Attorney, at this point in time, meron pa po ba kayong idadagdag tungkol sa marriage fraud?
Well, not the marriage fraud at this time. I think we discuss in detail kung ano yon. But bigyan natin ng updates yung ating mga kababayan kung ano yung mga bagong batas ng immigration. Unang-una yung kung kayo po ay green card holder, no, at malapit na mag-expire ang inyong green card. Let's say nasa 9 years and 11 months, mapa-expire na yung green card po ninyo at gusto niyo mag-citizen, right? Instead of you doing two things, which is to extend yung green card ninyo and file for citizenship, may bagong batas ngayon na pag nag-file po kayo ng naturalization or citizenship, automatic nag-extend yung inyong green card for 2 years. So, bawas ang gastos mo dun sa extension, di ba? Gastos sa abogado, gastos sa filing fee. So, yun ang maganda nun because once you file for naturalization, automatically extended ang inyong green card for 2 years. So, yung receipt na yon na ibibigay sa inyong immigration with the naturalization also mentions that your green card is extended. Meaning, kung gusto po ninyo mag-travel outside of the US, di ba, uwi ng Pilipinas or mag-travel sa Europe or Canada or hinahanapan kayo ng employer ng proof of authorization, di ba? So, yung resibo na, kasi pa-expire na yung green card mo o maabot na nga ng expiration, pwede mong ipakita yung dati mong green card at saka yung naturalization receipt that says extended ang inyong green card for 2 years. So isa sa mga updates yan. Pangalawa, Kuya Johan, may bagong ano rin sa green card application, adjustment of status, may tanong doon ng public charge. So be careful of what you write there. Pag-usapan siguro natin sa ibang sitwasyon, pero may bagong version ang I-485 where you have to indicate whether you are subject to public charge at tatanungin ilan ang household nyo, income ninyo at ano education, etc. So, yun ang pangalawa. Pangatlo, mayroong proposal ngayon ng USCIS na magtataas ng mga immigration fees. So, watch out for that as well. Lalong-lalo na yung mga employment-based cases, yung H-1B, yan ang greatly affected. But siguro sa susunod nating topic, malapit ng April, where the H-1B is going to open for 65,000 slots for the H-1B petition. So yun yung bagong updates mga kababayan, and watch out also yung mga asylum seekers natin. May bagong batas din na pinopropose or implement ng USCIS. Not too many of our clients are seeking asylum in the US, but if you do, consult us also dahil we do all kind of immigration in the United States. Yun lang, Kuya Johan, at paalala sa mga kababayan natin, unang-una, don't enter into a marriage fraud because malaking consequence niyaan, di ba? So, but if you already in that situation, feel free to contact us because there are possible relief. It might be very, very difficult. Other attorneys might say you are already doomed, right? Wala nang pag-asa, but we as immigration attorneys and advocates always make time or make a, evaluate your case and find out whether there's still possible relief sa inyong kaso, which we believe may mga posible pa. And again, Kuya Johan, maraming salamat sa inyo sa PHLV Radio and sa mga kababayan natin nanonood at nakikinig. Please watch and share all the programs of PHLV Radio.
Nako, maraming salamat, Attorney Flomy Diza, nagagaling po sa Reeves Immigration Law Group dyan po sa San Francisco, California. And Happy New Year po sa inyong lahat dyan sa San Francisco, California. Alam namin medyo inuulan kayo dyan sa California ngayon, pero we're hoping for the best in 2023. Mga kababayan, maraming salamat for joining us tonight on Immigration Law on Your Side, right here on PHLV Radio. Attorney Diza, maraming salamat. And guys, we will see you next time.
Reeves Immigration Law Group has been representing immigrants for nearly 40 years. Reeves Immigration Law Group has been fighting for its clients through experience and expertise. With immigration lawyers you can access at reasonable fees, even on Saturday. Payment plans are also available. Call us for your immigration solutions. We can do worldwide telephone and Skype consultations. Reeves Immigration Law Group, 1-800-795-8009. Reeves Immigration Law Group has offices in Los Angeles, San Francisco, China, and Philippines. See us at www.rreeves.com. Reeves Immigration Law Group, 1-800-795-8009.
Reeves Immigration Law Group has just brought you Immigration Law on Your Side, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Pacific on PHLV Radio.